Hey everyone out there, Dan here from GeekCast Radio doing another comic book review. I am continuing my look at the Amazing Spider-Man series, this time taking a review at the issue number 2. This is still written by Nick Spencer, also art by Ryan Ottley, and man, that art by Ryan Ottley is something else. If you've not watched my first review, go ahead and do that, but suffice to say, I did really like that issue. I thought it did a lot really successfully, and the biggest thing I think it did successfully was utilize Ryan Ottley's art, and that's not the case here. First, he could draw an amazing elephant. Never thought that would happen. I did not expect to see an elephant when I first opened the book. My first thought was, ooh, Kraven the Hunter? Is that happening? Because that'd be great. It didn't. Not to spoil anything. But we do see some other villains that show up. One of my personal favorite, I don't know what you want to call him, villain, anti-hero maybe. He tends to be a hero sometimes, villain, but Taskmaster, he does show up. Not to spoil that, but it's not like a huge plot point. One of the biggest things that this does pick up on too is the relationship between Mary Jane and Peter Parker, which was a huge part of the first issue. I think the thing many people talked about, a lot of people are excited about. I do find it interesting that Peter Parker, his world is crumbling around him. He's no longer has his doctorate. He doesn't have his job. He's now living with two other roommates, but he has Mary Jane, so it all makes sense. But then knowing Peter's luck, knowing like this is working really well, they're actually connecting. That doesn't bode well. Anytime things are going well, if something's working for him, that's gonna be taken away. It would be my assumption. So for those people thinking this means that they're gonna get married again, I would hold off on that. I think Marvel might be playing you. Maybe I'm not wrong. I'm wrong. But by the end of this issue, and I will say, as an issue, it's not nearly as strong as the first issue. It doesn't accomplish nearly as much. Partially because it's not as long, but also partially because it ends up just kind of, I don't know. It just kind of is treading water a little bit. We do learn more about Doc Connors, like what exactly he's doing there, his story. That takes up a pretty big chunk of the book. But it does tie into this idea of second chances. Peter Parker getting his second chance after losing his doctorate. Doc Connors getting his probably 18th chance after trying to kill the world. And too, also Nick Spencer. I think that's certainly he is also looking for a second chance. I think for many wrote him off because of Secret Empire, and I think this is him saying, you know what, maybe there's things I should have done that I didn't do. But here I am trying to do my best again, and I think he's doing it. I think he first and foremost does have the voice of Parker, and I think that's what you need to make a successful book. He has that humor that works because it doesn't work. If the jokes were too funny, it'd be not working as well, but they're funny because they're not funny in a way. And again, Ryan Ottley being amazing, showing Taskmaster, who has, I would say, in the top 3 of greatest costumes, and the real Taskmaster costume, not that awful new one that they had him in. It's not nearly as good. But that was the one thing I think, like, this does end on a last page that feels like, okay, this puts everything into a different perspective now. What does this mean? What does this mean going forward? And because of that, I was wondering if it just like it was waiting to get that moment a little too much, so it didn't want to do, it wanted to kind of hold itself back. Then it's like, okay, what does this mean? Like, where can we go? Spartageddon's in the background. We know that's happening soon. Is that a tie into that? I don't know. It was kind of odd, and it then had me thinking again back to that Mary Jane piece. Like, if Peter Parker and Mary Jane are together, what could this be? Like, is this or is this kind of showing us that that's not really happening? Again, I don't want to spoil it, but it does, I think, an effective thing in the sense of ending an issue on a spot where you're like, okay, now I need to know. It does do that really well, but I just wish there was a little bit more. And partially maybe that's because after the first issue that did so much, it set up a new status quo. It was able to kind of bring Peter Parker back down to earth. It had great personal moments with Aunt May. There was so much going on, great comedic beats, great interaction with other team members. And this is just like, he kind of just learns about Doc Connors and why he's teaching. And yeah, again, thematically it does fit in, but I guess, picking that first issue was so engaging. I was kind of a little disappointed by the second issue not being on par or not being as strong. So it wasn't bad. It wasn't awful. It just was kind of just middle of the road when it comes to many of these Marvel Fresh Start books. So I'm still going to be picking it up, so keeping going, because I think that last page, it does what it should do, and if it could be quite the story. It wasn't going where I was expecting the story to go based upon a lot of what was being set up. Now I'm like sitting back thinking, huh, what exactly is this tying into Superior? Octopus, maybe? I don't know. I don't want to give it away, but if you have thoughts and opinions, let me know. Are you excited about Mary Jane and Peter Parker possibly getting back together? That was never a big thing for me. I was never someone who hated One New Day as much as like everyone else on the planet. But yeah, I guess when it comes to marriage in comics, I don't really care all that much. I don't know why, but it's weird. Anyways, enough rambling. If you want to check out more from me, check out my podcast, Comics Concierge. Go to GeekCast Radio. We try to drop at least a podcast, a video each day, covering pretty much everything from comics to movies to TV to tech, all that great stuff. But ultimately, remember, comics are for everyone. The key is finding the right one. Until next time, thank you for watching.